All right. So, welcome to Dice Nights, Episode 1, Take 4, because technical issues. The bi-weekly podcast where we break down a theme or topic in Dungeons & Dragons. Now, tonight it's our first episode. It's going to be an introduction of just us and why we started playing D&D and all that stuff. So, let's go around the proverbial table and do the thing everyone hates at the beginning of each school year, and that is talk a little about yourselves. Bailey, ladies first.
Thanks. So I'm Bailey. I am in my last year of college for my associate's degree for just general photography, video, arts, editing, all the randomness I can throw in one degree. I've been playing D&D for almost 3 years now. Yeah, I keep questioning myself, even though I've said it like 4 times. And I got into D&D through watching Critical Role, which is a live stream D&D game through that they do over Twitch and YouTube now. So.
All right. Chris, you're up to bat next.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the only non-North American member of the podcast. I'm from Ireland. I have been playing D&D for like a year and a half now. Started with my IRL game, then we started playing online about half a year later because I just wanted to play more D&D. But I've known about D&D and have wanted to play D&D for about 3 years after watching Critical Role, although I knew about D&D beforehand and kind of always wanted to try it, but wasn't really sure if I actually want to try until I watched Critical Role. But I am 21 and I have a degree in digital forensics and cybersecurity, which I got this year. And I'm currently not doing anything else. That is all.
Right. So, last but not least, I'm Eric. I have a degree in creative writing. I am the longest person out of school as a graduate currently. I've been out for about a year and a half now. But I'm also the youngest in terms of players for D&D in this group. I've only been playing pretty much this year. Before this group that I wound up a part of through some sheer providence, I had only ever played 2 games of Dungeons & Dragons before this. And until that point, I had kind of always avoided it, because as much as I was a fantasy nerd and loved reading and all this stuff, I always thought D&D was like one step too far down the rabbit hole for some weird reason, and now...
You've fallen down that rabbit hole. It's
more like I got tripped and shoved, but at the same time...
Yeah, shoved yourself.
Yeah, at the same time, like, now we've been playing with this group for a year. We started online because we met in the Critical Role fan group because we all watched the stream and responded to one guy putting the group together. And for those of you that have played Dungeons & Dragons before, in person or online, you may have heard some horror stories about online groups falling apart very quickly. We're definitely the exception, because somehow we survived a year of each other, driving each other crazy.
They think we're the exception.
Yeah.
I secretly hate everyone in the group.
Well, that explains why you're burning my character's hometown next session, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
There's no revenge
Oh,
DMing
God.
that happens at all in this group. If you
No,
can't
definitely
tell.
not.
Not at all.
Definitely not.
So,
Nope.
But anyway, back to the on topic of the podcast.
yeah. So a few disclaimers before we go any further off topic. We're gonna do our best to make sure that like these episodes are kid friendly and family friendly, but we are trying for more casual conversation. So there's going to be points where our language slips. So we're sorry in
I
advance.
apologize in advance.
Yeah, we're mainly
Chris.
just putting that disclaimer in there because of Chris.
Yep.
Chris.
Us Irish, for those of you who don't know, curse like fairly frequently. I've previously said every second sentence. I would like to re-say that and correct myself to probably every second word most of the time. But I'm trying to put my
He's
filter on.
controlling himself right
So,
now.
yeah.
listeners in the
It
comments,
hurts.
feel free to keep a tally.
Yeah,
That
it
said,
hurts. Hurts a lot.
this episode is our introduction, so it's going to be more personal. It's going to be us just talking about D&D and why we're here and why we love doing this. But future episodes are going to be all centered on specific topics. I know Our second episode of Dice Nights is going to be an episode for new players. So we're going to talk about what you should bring to the table, whether or not you should really worry about party composition for characters and all that kind of thing, and just kind of give our opinions on what a session 0 would sort of look like for new players. And then we also do have a companion podcast to Dice Nights, known as Lich Please. That's going to be fun. Chris, if you want to talk a bit about that one, go for it.
Oh, about Lich Please? Well, Lich Please is a podcast which we came up... Well, Eric mostly came up with the idea for it.
Yeah.
We just all kind of pitched in a little bit, but he had the main idea. Was more of a podcast focused on role-playing characters, except it's characters which are a Lich, who is a talk show host, and his beholder kind of side guy, who are going to be interviewing...
A Lich with some beholder side action. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. It's not actually like that, but not yet anyway.
What happened to family friendly, Eric?
Kids don't know what that means. I've lost my train of thought on that totally for what you're after saying. Lich and the Beholder, talk show, who are going to be interviewing different characters who represent different themes in D&D.
Yep.
So like some of the examples we have are so if you're talking about building a world, getting a civics engineer on to talk about how to build a town and stuff like that, just to, keep it in character, keep it kind of focused and on topic, as a role play style podcast, because there aren't any podcasts like that that aren't just games.
Yeah, so this kind of started mainly because I had a crazy idea for this character who's essentially a wizard who becomes a lich just for the purpose of resurrecting dead celebrities and being like the ultimate talk show host. So that spiraled off into this idea for a podcast where, like, what if a lich just interviewed famous D&D monsters, creatures, adventurers, and that kind of thing. So keep an eye for Lich Please. If you're not as interested in this kind of like deep D&D analysis podcast, you might enjoy the kind of lighter, funnier icebreaker Lich Please podcast, and it'll just give you a feel for what it's like to be in character for D&D, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We already recorded episode 1. It's a fantastically funny introduction episode. It's only about 8 minutes, but I do know episode 2, we're going to be talking about the ubiquitous first tavern owner that almost every player gets to meet in their first game of D&D, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun
It's gonna be a fun one. Also, as a note, Lich Please is going to be a much shorter form podcast. Like, I think we said they're only going to be like 20 minutes long max most of the time.
Max.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a lot shorter, and take up a lot less time to listen to, just because of kind of how we're structuring it and how we do them.
Yeah.
Because we kind of you can't really go off on a tangent when you're in it, because you're playing your characters. You don't have like all this information that's available to you, so you kind of can't go off topic for it. Because we're just trying to, show mostly new players what it's like to actually role play in a game without role playing in a game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because there's a lot of live play games. We didn't want to do that. Bailey.
Yeah, show the extent of what the role playing in a game can be.
Yes.
And show D&D through like a different eyes, like through the characters that are actually in the worlds that you're creating.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, and it's a fun way of just introducing topics too. Like, we're actually going to be kind of taking a topic from every Lich Please episode and expanding on it in a Dice Nights episode too. So they'll be loosely related every couple of weeks. We're going to be alternating release schedules too, so it'll be Dice Nights one week and Lich Please the next. At least that's the plan. Yep. And
the plan.
Yeah. Dice Nights is more like the analysis, talking about the theme, talking about our experiences in D&D. We're eventually going to do some our stories from games episodes, which are
Oh,
going to be
God.
hilarious.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
There's some stuff.
It'd be great, but for this episode, we kind of all decided we just want to talk about why we keep coming back to D&D and why we keep playing and why we like it so much. If either of you would like to start us off, please feel free. I feel like I'm talking too much.
Bailey, do you want to go first?
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Well, the reason I keep coming back to D&D is because of the freedom the game gives. Not just when you're playing, but when you're DMing. Because, as a quick note, the three of us currently who are here talking all DM games. We're all DMs and players for each other. We kind of have like rotating games every now and like every week, pretty much.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt, but to give a bit of background here, our full group consists of 6 regular players, a few of whom will be popping in and out of the podcast episodes as we go, but tonight there were some scheduling issues. And basically we have like 4 campaigns running that rotate in and out because we play twice a week with the same group and have been for a while. Anyways, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Chris.
Yeah, but it's fine. But yeah, we have the rotating game, so we all DM and play with each other. And the thing that I love about D&D, and I keep coming back all the time, is the freedom you get as a DM and a player to craft the story exactly how you want it to be. There's no dialogue limits like in video games. There's no choice limits. You can literally do whatever you want. Like,
and
if you want to go into a tavern, although don't do this, if you're actually going to play, don't be evil, unless you're playing an evil campaign, which is fair. But, like, you could just go into a tavern and slaughter everyone if you wanted. You can't do that in, like, most video games if you're playing it, which is why I love it. You can't do it in, like, pretty much anything. You can't do it in real life, definitely. But,
I would hope not. Please, no one do that.
Yeah, please no.
No one do that.
But no, Chris...
Disclaimer, we don't condone any of going into taverns in person and slaughtering all the people inside.
I don't even think we condone it in a D&D game because we all play, like, mainly good aligned
fair.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, that kind of thing, like, you can... If you're given a choice by a crime boss and he gives you 2 options... There's never 2 options. There's always a third option. There's always a fourth option. There's always you can get your way out of anything if you're creative enough.
Yeah, like baiting 2 titans into fighting each other.
Yeah,
that was the stupidest and most amazing thing we've ever done.
That was a. We'll save that for one of the podcasts where we talk about our stories. But
yeah.
D&D, because it's a creative game, it rewards creativity. It rewards thinking of different ways to approach situations, and I just love that because I love coming up with new things. Like, even as a DM, I love coming up with like puzzles and like new ways to have boss battles and new, like, even for my creatures I use for boss battles, I don't use monster manual stats. I make my own stat blocks for all of my bosses, because I like giving them abilities and stuff that aren't in the monster manual.
Yeah.
Because the abilities in the monster manual can sometimes, depending, be kind of boring. So, like, for example, one of the things I wanted to... They're fighting werewolves and stuff, and one of the werewolves, the, like, alpha of their pack, was gonna be the final boss for that arc. So I completely redid a stat block for a werewolf and added a bunch of abilities that aren't in the monster manual.
That scared all of us.
Yeah.
Like, dude.
Yeah, like I gave him a thing where he could, like, as an action, he could, like, leap into the air and land on somebody, which knocks them prone, but then he also gets to make an attack on them while they're prone, so he has advantage. Like, things like that. Like,
yeah.
I like giving creatures that are, like, you know, one versus many an ability that can either affect multiple creatures, because, you know, you need the action economy to balance out.
Yeah.
Or, you know, something where they can just, like, really mess a player up to the point where everyone starts panicking and has to focus on helping that player rather than trying to kill the monster.
Yeah, like he did to me in game. during that scenario.
Yeah.
That wasn't
My
fun.
monk got his ass kicked
Mm-mm.
by that werewolf. Holy crap!
Yeah, it didn't go well.
Bailey,
They killed it in the end, but still, that's kind of why I keep coming back to D&D: the creativity and the freedom of doing whatever you want.
I mean, in the werewolf's defense, my character did sort of, in a weird way, catcall a werewolf. So
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I was
He
trying.
wasn't happy about it.
The werewolf was focused on some NPCs. I was trying to make sure things wouldn't go down. It was a necessary evil.
It was
Mm-hmm.
so
But
weird.
Bailey, I want to hear why you keep coming back. You're also the newest DM of the group too, in terms of running
Yeah.
games. So your perspective is
Yeah. So I keep going back to like player wise, because I've always been invested in characters. Like I grew up reading and just kind of putting myself in the character's shoes directly and feeling exactly what the author described they were feeling and how things were happening and actually feeling the impact on me. And when I watch movies, I'm constantly feeling like the secondhand emotions. Majority of the time, it's secondhand embarrassment, which is not fun. But I'm always invested in characters and how characters continue on their story and progress and change. And I really wasn't able to. I wasn't really able to write something myself that I could show how that worked in my brain. Because I've always enjoyed writing and creating stories in general. But it never really worked for me like, oh, this person changes, but it's like, I can't write what changes them and write how the character changes because I'm too invested in what's changing them and the character for it to actually make sense. So, being a player, it's really nice to have someone telling you this is what's happening to you and what everything that's happening in the world around them, and I can be like, this is how it's affecting the character, this is how it's affecting how they view these people, how they view the party, how it views what they're doing, and it's really messing with a few of my characters' minds because a few of them are not in good situations at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah, none
Both
of
of you.
yeah. Ironically,
None of them.
the two characters she's talking about are the ones she plays in Chris and I's games.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Because it takes me a while to get out of my character's mindset because I fully go into their brain and I kind of become them, I guess. So I like that bit because I'm also that person where it's like, I want to know what other people feel like. I want to experience something I'm never going to experience, which basically D&D, you get to experience being something you're never going to be, a class. Like my gunslinger, I will never be like Rennie. And then I will never be able to cast magic like my wizard Mirai. I'll never be able to do that. So it gives me a whole new experience and a whole new brand of life, I guess. But then coming back as a DM, I get that point of like telling a story and like getting points into characters and changing up backstory bits that will change them for the future, whether it'll be for the good or the bad, we're gonna find out. But it's things that I'm very excited about seeing, and some people are not so much excited because they don't know anything.
For Bailey's campaign, I managed to accidentally write the backstory of my character so that he's literally the most wanted man on a continent. And I am so scared every time we play her game.
Everyone in that game has super, like, insanely complex backstories.
Everyone fits so well and was so similar.
And then I'm just a Kenku rogue.
No, because everyone fits so well in that game, and I was really excited because everyone was so relatable and they were getting to know each other. And then we had our sorcerer come in, and I was just like, well, there it goes down the drain. Because they're so different, but it's a great
We're basically
dynamic,
like all without
amazing.
like, okay, my Kenku rogue is a fucking huge criminal. Sorry, I cursed. Is like a huge criminal, and like the other Eric's character, and then Peyton, who was meant to be here but couldn't because of scheduling, his character is like so down with me being a criminal and just stealing stuff.
Yeah.
And then the new one of our other players, joined a little bit after, and their character ain't down with that.
No.
Their
And
character
it's
No.
really funny.
is like pure
She's-
lawful good, divine soul sorcerer, like
Yeah.
It's the best party in the weirdest way.
it's so weird. But that said, I want to kind of hit on something you both brought up because it's something that is like the through thread for me being a player and a DM. Is like I love making stories and I love making characters, but for me it's all about being a part of something bigger. For me, it's kind of connecting with people on the level of making a story together. Because like when I was in university, when I was in my creative writing workshops and all that stuff, I would have basically just huge discussions with the other students in the room about their work, about their poetry, their short stories, and all this stuff. And I didn't really enjoy the assignments, but what I did enjoy was everybody reading each other's stuff and being like, oh, hey, did you think of doing this? Or kind of helping each other tweak things and get to a point where we were all as good as possible. And that, like, is the main thing that keeps me coming back to D&D. Every time I watch, like, when I'm running a game, every time I watch all of them come up with a really weird strategy for a fight, or a really, like, when they pick up on something I didn't anticipate them to, I get this weird little chill, and then I get, like, this goofy-ass grin on my face. Pardon me, I cursed as well. I think we're up to 3 now, for those of you keeping tally in the comments. But besides that, I just really love making a story, and I like the interactive aspects, and I love it when me, who reads a lot and experiences a lot of different types of stories through like video games and books and movies and all this stuff, I love it when I can't predict a twist. That's my big thing. I love like dropping a bomb in the middle of a story and watching it cross everybody's faces.
Yeah, that's always
like
fun.
like last game, I have them all fighting against the literal end of the world, and they've dealt with things like primordial elemental titans, and I had that set up as being like a big thing, and then they have another kind of overarching villain going on, and then out of nowhere they go back to one city to pick up a particularly powerful magic item, and the whole city is just zombie apocalypsed, just out of the blue. From something I
it's
seeded
nuts.
in
He
like
World War
session
Z'd
10
us.
or something. I can't remember. It was real early. And it was this small detail that if they picked up on it, they could have investigated and actually prevented all of that. But then they left. And it was lovely because I got to go and indulge my like slasher zombie horror side of storytelling that I haven't been able to really put out there yet. It was great.
It's
It
insane
was fantastic.
and terrifying.
That's actually another thing. Wait, are you not done yet?
No,
Sorry.
go for it. I'm just riffing off you guys at this point.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say another thing that keeps me coming back, as this is more like from a DM perspective, is I am a big fan of entertaining people, regardless of whether I have to make an idiot of myself to do so or not.
Agreed.
But I love getting reactions from people, positive or negative. It doesn't matter to me. And that's why like DMing, when like if I can do something that gets like really emotional response from the players, like Eric recently in the last session for my game,
He burned my hometown.
he got back to his hometown after they were traveling for a few weeks, and they came back and his hometown was like in flames currently, and they have to
I'd
go
also
and,
like to point out
try and stop that.
that was a cliffhanger. He ended the
Yeah.
session with my
Yeah.
character seeing his hometown on fire, and that was it. So I have to
Yeah.
wait until this Friday to find out the results of that. I'm not
Yeah.
happy,
And his like whole family
but I
lives
love
there.
it. But I love it.
So, but the whole point of that is I love getting a response from the players in some kind of way, and that's like I try make all of my characters, like all my NPCs, not all of them, most of my pre-planned NPCs, I try and give them like some kind of quirk or just give them a funny voice or something to try and just make them laugh and just break character and just have fun while they're
like Jimmy.
talking. Oh yeah. Yeah, one of the actually that wasn't even a pre-planned character. That was a thing I came up with on the spot. There was a character that I made for people, like there were in one of the cities they were in were like teleportation circles that brought them throughout the city because the city's like too big to like physically walk around. So people take teleportation circles to get around to different districts and things. But one of the ones they went to, there's people who work all of the teleportation circles. And one of them, his name was Jimmy. He was a gnome or halfling. I think he was a gnome. But just for whatever reason, I just wanted to give him a stutter. And that's something I'd never like tried before, because I've DM'd a few games before, and I'd never tried giving a character. I always try to do something different with the characters in the one shots that I've DM'd before, but I've never tried giving a character a stutter before. And it ended up being a really fun quirk to play for a character. This might sound kind of harsh for anyone actually who has a stutter, but that's just how I find when I'm running a character.
That's the thing, though. You kind of hit on 2 points there that like I want to pull from that story, so that we're not technically off topic. The one thing is kind of just entertaining people. I love telling a story with other people, and I love watching their reactions when they do something epic, like getting a group kill on a Primordial Earth Titan, which was one of the best sessions we've ever had as a group. But I also love the improvisation. It's fun to just have a bit of a structure and a bit of a setting and a general idea, and then to just hand that to people and say, "Here, don't blow it up." It's
one of my favorite things as a player is just I just love the random improv stuff.
It's so great. Some of the best moments we've had have like had nothing to do with story moments, and it's just been ripping off each other's characters.
Yeah, they've just been improv, like going and talking to an NPC and then like just having a bit of a laugh and a joke, and it's just that is really, really fun.
Which is basically all of Lich Please. So if any of you are interested in
that is Lich Please.
And then Bailey, you brought up the idea of being very in character during games. And I will flat out admit, I have so far made all but one of the players in our group cry in games, just from emotional overload.
It's me.
No, Chris is not the one who
that's a lie.
What?
No, heck no, you have definitely cried.
We play online using Discord for voice and video, and I have secured moments with each player, except for one, where they've had to turn off both their microphone and their camera. And
that was me.
Yeah, that was you.
That was me.
Every player has done it except Peyton, actually. Because he doesn't react the same way to like heavy emotions, especially if I do something like heartbreaking in game. His characters, or at least the way he plays his character gets angry rather than sad. So that's fun in its own right, and I like picking up on threads as a DM and like kind of pulling a character along by having their thread loop into the story, and I like incorporating all that together. But it makes for some seriously emotional moments, and it's one of the benefits of finding a group like this. And I will forever say that this group has become one of my closest group of friends that I've had pretty much ever.
And it kind of sucks because none of us are near each other, so the only time we ever get to hang out is during D&D.
Yeah,
true.
But we also get to see each other for like 12 hours a week because we play 6-hour games.
Yeah, fair.
So it's like, it's kind of like we all just go to school in separate areas, but we are all very good friends and still close, which is weird. But it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's great because, like, even in character, we're still kind of learning about each other and developing the kind of relationship as group members that we have and as friends that we have. And no matter what characters we're playing or who's DMing, we always come out of it saying, like, oh, that was awesome. even when we've had games like Dissolve, our first campaign, like story we started, broke apart just because the characters didn't function.
The characters didn't work.
Yep.
But even
I think we're gonna cover that next Dice Nights, right? Like that kind of scenario.
yeah, like party
think so,
dynamic and like
Mhm.
if a party isn't working, it may not be the players, it may just be that the characters
Character.
don't work, and that's perfectly fine. Roll up new characters, start a new
It
story,
happens.
and we'll get to that.
That really only applies for groups who are super into roleplay though.
Yeah, if you're a
True.
group that's more along the lines of just dungeon crawl, kill stuff, get loot, then you may not have that issue. But like our characters just fundamentally didn't work well together because we're all very
Yeah.
heavy into roleplay.
Yeah.
It took us, 6 months to get out of the city?
Yeah, it took
Yeah,
us
6 months of like real life time.
Real time.
6 months of like real time equated to about 2.5 to 3 weeks in game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because
But
so
to be
many
fair,
things
at the
happened.
time, our DM was like quite new at the time as well. So we've all
Yeah, we were all pretty
we
new.
were all like
we
fairly
were-
new. So like we've learned from that.
Yeah, I would almost call that the growing pains of the group.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then once we
definitely.
once we started, because my game was the second one that we started together,
It was. Yep.
and I started that
Mhm.
game because I didn't want us to stop playing, and our DM for our first game had to take a break due to school, so I wanted to kind of give her a chance to be a player, and I wanted to kind of start with this idea I had using the Critical Role Tal'Dorei campaign setting, where I wanted to sort of start a legacy game set after their first campaign from the stream. And I pitched the idea to these crazy bunch of misfits, and they kind of loved the idea. So for a while there, we were playing 2 games a week, and then I wound up running 2 games a week in the same campaign for a span of about 6 weeks.
That was
Yep.
crazy.
And then I decided that I wanted to start DMing.
Yeah.
In the
Thank
middle
you.
of writing my thesis, I might add.
Yeah, that was...
Just out of nowhere, I was just writing my thesis, and I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? All this writing I'm doing, these thousands of words a day, it's not enough. I need to write a
Not
campaign.
But Chris, you also have said multiple times that like your grades have never been better than when you've been playing D&D. And
Yeah, no, yeah, that is true, yeah.
like
Because it really, like, I feel like D&D motivated me to, because we were, we had, like, our set time that we were playing every week, and when I commit to something, I commit to it. I don't half-ass it. I don't, like, be like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be late this week, or I'm gonna be, not here, or whatever. I fully commit to it. So that's why, I had less time to work on assignments, or less time to procrastinate on assignments, I should say. So I had to, like, buckle down and like get them all done, because I had less time to sit there and pretend like I was doing them, but I wasn't really. So I had to actually get it done. And then especially when I started DMing, I just wanted to write more for the campaign. I just wanted to plan more. So that was like while I was writing my thesis, and at the time that was the only thing I had to do for college. I had all my other assignments finished, but I wanted to start, like, I was like, hey, if I write this many words today for my thesis and get it done at this time, I can plan for this many hours for D&D. And I worked, and I got a pretty damn good final degree. I got like the second highest degree you could possibly get, so I did pretty well.
long story short, Chris is smarter than all the rest of us in this group combined.
No,
True.
definitely not.
Also, the best at accents for NPCs.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, I'll take that one, but I'm not taking the first one.
You will notice that for now and forever, Chris will be credited as our voiceover director for Lich Please
Yeah.
and Dice Nights.
Yeah.
Because he is the only one who could actively claim that title.
No, Eric, say that again. It wasn't loud enough. I'm just doing my
Anyways,
Oh, jeez. What have we
and
done?
Bailey, you still being in school, like Chris and I are both graduated now, so we're kind of
Mhm.
separated away from it. But he did touch on, like, it seems like D&D helps him de-stress, and I want to know if it's the same thing for you.
I mean, yeah. I pushed through getting a paper done in half an hour so I could be on time to record this tonight. And I think it was pretty good. So we'll see what happens. But it definitely is saying that I'm taking like, what is it, like 10 credits over full time just to push through this last quarter of school. It's like really beaten down on me because I haven't had homework since I graduated high school, really, except for writing like 2 papers. So actually having homework and like things to do outside of class, which I'm not used to, is definitely taking its toll on me. But having D&D and friends I can actually talk to and get help, because I've gone to Eric with help for my lit class on like a few, like some things I'm not sure because he does a little more of that than I have. But it's having those guys to go to if I'm having problems, or like, okay, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, I need some D&D just to get my mind off of the projects, off of the stress of school, and actually like have fun.
Yeah.
So.
And sometimes
that's what I was gonna say.
And then sometimes
good
cry
distraction.
because D&D can still be stressful sometimes when you're in character, but it's a different kind of stress.
It's also stressful when you're planning for a session and you still have no idea what you're planning.
Yeah.
Which is my situation right now. I don't know what I'm doing for the next session.
I know that feeling very well. That was most of it.
I don't know.
In those like 6 weeks where I was running 2 games a week in our Tal'Dorei campaign, so much of it was improv because I just wouldn't have the time or the energy to plan specific things, and it worked out. It worked out all right. Like I
think we had so much fun during those double sessions. It was great.
Like I wouldn't do it again. I would never run like 2 sessions of the same campaign in the same week. But multiple campaigns.
I don't know why you did that in the first place.
I would do it. Well, because
you are doing it.
Yeah, like multiple campaigns for me is a bit easier to keep straight in my head, like multiple storylines and all that. Instead of having to plan sequentially, it was like trying to write 2 television episodes a week. It was difficult, but it turned out great, and that's because like I said earlier, this group is fantastic that we've put together, and we're definitely.
You give us a little bit, we'll run with the roleplay.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's as close as I will probably ever get to working with professional actors, and I say that with like all the love I can muster.
Wow.
Because
okay.
Yeah.
that's
I will be honest. In terms of having been a DM for since December, so it'll be like what, 9 months now, 9.5 months.
Yeah, very long time.
Yeah.
I can give you all like the slightest bit of information, and you will run with it in ways I don't expect. Like, for example, and this is a story I'll save for another time too, I had a traditional like 3-act story planned out for the Tal'Dorei campaign.
Oh yeah, this.
Act 2 does not exist anymore because of events that they managed to work out, because they managed to turn my Act 2 villain good at the end of Act 1.
Which no one expected to come from my character.
Yep.
Because she hates them.
Yep.
Or hate him.
She's in love with him now.
You need to
that's
stop.
Another story for a different time, Chris.
That is another story. I need to tell that story.
That was hilarious and like so many shenanigans, and we're kind of pushing on like 40 minutes of recording right now. So
yeah, we should probably wrap up.
I just want to wrap this up with saying, for those of you, I know this has been a bit of a rambly episode. Trust us, we're going to get onto more specific topics later.
It's going to get better.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more structured. Don't worry.
We wanted to be a bit more personal and show you that we're doing this because we love talking about D&D, and we love the game and what it can do for people and what it's done for us. And this is part of the reason why we've started by talking about it rather than doing a live play, because our games are kind of for us. If there's interest in the future, we may run a game once a new campaign starts for any of us. We don't know for sure. But for now, we just kind of want to talk about the game, and we want to try and get more people interested and be a bit of an icebreaker podcast for people to get introduced to the hobby, basically.
We're just a bunch of geeks and nerds who want to talk about things with other geeks and nerds. That's basically what we're doing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, feel free to like leave your own stories in the comments, why you started playing. Talk about some of your good experiences.
We'd love to hear. I love hearing how people got started playing D&D and experiences they've had.
Yeah.
All
and
that stuff.
like,
I love talking about it.
In later episodes, we're going to be talking about different story concepts, stuff you can do to make creatures more interesting. We're going to have a women in D&D
how creatures work
as well. Yeah. how creatures work is going to be a big one, but I'm excited for the women in D&D episode, talking about
That's gonna be a
Mhm.
good episode.
like big name women players and DMs and all that stuff. Is going to be great. We're going to have a how to build a good villain episode as well, with one other member of the group, Hannah, coming in to talk about that
Yep.
too. Hopefully,
That's gonna be fun.
it's
Mhm.
going to be great, and I'm so excited. These guys know I have a villain I'm going to be talking about for that
Oh, yeah.
episode.
Yep.
He's the
Yeah.
guy that wound up becoming a good guy.
I
Because
would have a villain, but it hasn't been. I can't say what it is yet, but
I can't say what the villain.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
say anything.
Also,
about the
depending
villain.
on when we record that one.
also
Depending on when.
depending
but-
on how things go, in combat we're kind of all beasts. Like, we are very tactical people, and unfortunately for Chris, none of
Yeah.
his bosses survive very long. And none of mine
It is
do
actually.
either.
It is actually the most unfortunate thing.
This
It
is
is so.
Just start tacking. I
We.
just tack on more HP. Just
I do that
I
too.
know that's what I do. But the thing is, literally, this is the last tangent before we finish. But the main problem is I use lingering injuries in my game. So when someone
Yeah.
rolls a
Yeah.
crit,
Yeah.
they roll the lingering injuries table, and I use an expanded lingering injuries table than the one in the DM's guide. So like it has like 30 different possible injuries. It's a PDF I have. And they whenever they roll the injury, you roll a D100 and you pick, and it matches up with an injury, and they always seem to roll literally the best possible injury they could land on that enemy.
Yep.
And it is ridiculous.
Mhm.
Like without fail every
amazing.
time.
It's great.
And that is the most
That's
frustrating
another
thing.
story.
But
That's
we
a
can
story
talk
for
about that
another
more
time.
in another episode.
There's so many.
The
things.
episode, I want a specific episode
We're-
for, why not to use lingering injuries.
We're going to have a multi-part series on what we learned from crazy stories in
Mhm.
D&D.
Yeah.
And
Or just crazy stories in general.
yeah, we're just
what we can
we're
share.
just gonna spend time talking about D&D, and I hope those of you listening will join us. I hope you will put some of your own stories of why you play and why you enjoy the medium, and other streams and other podcasts and stuff like that. Talk about that in the comments too. In the future, we're going to be referencing a lot of stuff that you can use for resources as well, and we'll probably talk about other shows we watch, other podcasts and creators, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we just kind of want to spread the love of the game a bit. And that's the whole point.
Mhm.
So I think this is about time for us to close out. So thank you for joining us for our first episode of Dice Nights, our fourth take of our first episode of Dice Nights. And we really hope to have you back for our next episode, and for the episodes of Lich Please as well, if you're interested. Hopefully we'll be releasing the first episode of Lich Please sometime soon if it's not out already. And I do hope you will enjoy a bunch of us geeks and nerds just talking about D&D. Thanks a lot for listening, and we will see you next week, hopefully.